Hello and welcome back to Navigating Special Education. My name is Penny Ohia. I am your special education advocate and your podcast host. On this podcast, I help parents understand the special education system clearly and practically so that you can walk into meetings informed, prepared, and confident. If you've ever sat in an IEP meeting and wondered, who are all these people? Who is required to be here? Is this even the right team? This episode is for you. In episode 5, we talked about requesting an evaluation. We covered when a parent should request one, why the request should always be in writing, the district's obligation to issue prior written notice, and the role of consent. That episode focused on getting your child evaluated properly. But once the evaluation is complete, once eligibility is determined, the next step is the IEP meeting. And that's where we are today. Picture this. There is a required first ring around that student, a core team that must be present. And we'll start with the parent. You are not a guest at the IEP meeting. You are the child expert. You are a required member. You're going to bring the child's strengths, the concerns that you have, the medical history of your child, the social insights, your home environment. Your input must be considered. In Michigan, when a student turns 18, then those educational rights are transferred to the student unless there is guardianship. Okay? Until then, your voice matters. It carries a lot of weight. Next is the general education teacher. She's or he is the content expert. If your child participates or may participate in general education, then the general education teacher must be there. This is the person that's going to explain the grade level expectations, the curriculum, the classroom demands, what the peers are expected to achieve. That person is going to help determine whether your child can access the general education curriculum with appropriate supports. So if your child is in general education and there's no general education teacher present, that's a concern. Next up is the special education teacher. This is the intervention expert. This is the person that understands specially designed instructions for your child. They know how the disability is impacting learning. They know what accommodations are appropriate for your child, what modifications are necessary, what goals are measurable and realistic. So if your child receives special education services, this person is required. Next is the district representative or the process expert. So the district representative could be a principal, an assistant principal, or another administrator. And that is a person who's qualified to supervise the provision of services. The district representative is also responsible for making sure that all required staff attend the IEP meeting. The district representative will attend all IEP meetings, including the IEP team meetings for students whose placement is in another district or center-based program. Next up is the evaluation team representative, or the MET. That's the data interpreter. This is the person who interprets the evaluation results. They're going to tell you the assessment data. They're going to explain their academic findings, They're going to explain the psychological testing, the speech, the OT, or other evaluations. They're going to connect the evaluation data to the instructional impact. Next up is the student. So students are encouraged to attend IEP meetings. However, no later than age 16, they must be invited when transition planning is being discussed. And then at the age of 18 in Michigan, the educational rights are transferred to the student, again, unless there is guardianship. Here's where parents get confused. Yes, there are required members, but sometimes additional people join based on the student needs. That might include the speech language pathologist. The speech language pathologist is a licensed professional who supports the communication, including expressive language, receptive language, articulation, and social communications. Occupational therapist is a licensed professional who's going to help with fine motor skills, like the handwriting and sensory regulations and the daily functional tasks at the school. You might have a physical therapist who supports mobility, positioning, strength, and physical access to the school environment. Social workers, also a licensed professional. They're going to address the social emotional needs, the behavior supports, the attendance concerns, and then the family school connection. You have the school psychologist, who is a licensed professional, and the psychologist conducts the cognitive and academic assessments, and they help interpret the psychological data that's affecting the learning. You have transition agency representative. These are agencies that participate when outside agencies may provide or fund adult services during the transition planning. And then you have the assistant technology specialist who evaluates and recommend devices or tools that can help the student access instructions. And then you have the nurse or a medical consultant. This is a person who's going to provide input when health conditions affect the school's participation or safety. These individuals are not automatically required at every meeting, but if their services are being discussed, added, reduced, or changed, their presence become important. Now let's talk about online meetings, because the districts, they like to have those virtual meetings. It is convenient, but the virtual meeting does not change the required team members. All required members must still be present. Parents can request that everybody's camera be on. I've gone to some meetings and some of the cameras was off, and I requested that the cameras be turned on. That way I know that everybody is present. So if someone is speaking about services or placement, their face should be visible. If necessary, you can just respectfully say, before we continue, I'd like all team members to turn on their cameras. That's appropriate. Whenever possible, though, in-person meetings are stronger. I recommend in-person meetings because the in-person meeting is going to improve the communication. It's going to reduce any kind of misunderstanding. It's allow you to read body language. You can make documents review easier. It increases accountability. Virtual meetings can work, but in-person often keeps everyone more engaged. If you prefer an in-person meeting, you can request one. IEP meetings must be scheduled at a mutually agreed upon time, not simply when it's convenient for the district. They should always consider your work schedule, your transportation, childcare, and your availability. If a proposed date does not work for you, request an alternative. You're not required to rearrange your life to fit their calendar. This is a team process, and team coordinates. If the required members are missing, then the meeting may not be properly conducted. Parents sometimes sit through meetings where the general education teacher is absent, or the district representative lacks authority, or the evaluation data is not properly explained. The therapists are absent while their services are discussed. That's not how it's supposed to work. The IEP is a collaborative process, not a presentation by the school. In the next episode, we're going to talk about how IEP meetings should actually flow. Not just who sits at the table, but what should happen step by step. Because structure matters. And when structure is ignored, then the parents feel overwhelmed. So we're going to bring clarity to that process. If this episode helped you understand who must be at your IEP meeting, share it with another parent. Subscribe to Navigating Special Education so that you can never miss an episode. If you need advocacy support, you can reach me at penny.ohia@specialeducationsadvocate.com. You do not have to navigate this system alone. Until next time, stay informed, stay prepared, and keep advocating.